Zixtal floated through the gleaming corridors of the Galactic Educational Exchange Program's newest facility, their crystalline body catching and refracting the artificial starlight. They had taught for over 300 cycles on their homeworld of Kyloria, where students meditated in peaceful silence and learned through telepathic transmission. This new assignment, however, promised to be different. The facility director, a many-tentacled being from Proxima 4, had warned Zixtal about the human students. "They're energetic," the director had said, waving several appendages nervously. "And they come from a death world." Zixtal had dismissed such concerns. In their experience, all young beings required guidance and structure. How different could these humans really be? The answer came on Zixtal's third day as the new disciplinary coordinator. Jake Miller sat in the advanced physics classroom, his leg bouncing restlessly under his desk. At 16 Earth years, he was already known throughout the station for his creative experimentation. Today's lesson covered gravitational theory, but Jake found the instructor's droning voice unbearable. His fingers itched to test the artificial gravity controls mounted on the wall. The Vortian instructor turned away to demonstrate a complex equation. Jake saw his chance. He slipped from his seat and crept toward the control panel. His classmates, a mix of various species, watched with wide eyes, antennae, and optical sensors as Jake began adjusting the settings. "Mr. Miller," the instructor's voice cracked like breaking ice. "What are you doing?" Jake grinned, his hand still on the controls. "Just wanted to see if we could experience the equation in real time, sir. You know, for educational purposes." Before anyone could stop him, Jake twisted the dial. The classroom's gravity shifted wildly. Desks floated upward, students grabbed onto whatever they could find, and a Jelanian student's lunch spheres went bouncing off the walls like rubber balls. Zixtal arrived moments later to find chaos. Jake stood in the center of the room, somehow managing to look both guilty and proud as furniture drifted around him. "Human student Jake Miller," Zixtal announced, their crystalline form pulsing with authority. "You will serve detention for this disruption." Jake shrugged. "Fair enough. What's detention like here?" "Standard isolation protocol," Zixtal replied. "You will spend 4 hours in quiet contemplation, reflecting on your actions." Jake's casual demeanor faltered. "Wait, isolation? Like alone? In a room? For 4 hours?" "Correct. It allows for proper meditation and self-improvement." The human's face went through several expressions that Zixtal couldn't quite interpret. That might not be the best idea for a human." But Zixtal had already made their decision. Rules were rules, after all. The isolation chamber was a small, peaceful room with soft lighting and padded walls. Most species found it calming, even therapeutic. Zixtal watched through the monitoring system as Jake entered, expecting to see the human settle into quiet reflection. Instead, Jake immediately began pacing, back and forth like a caged animal. He lasted exactly 17 minutes before starting to talk to himself. "Okay, Jake, you can do this. It's just 4 hours. People meditate all the time. You can meditate. Just sit still and think about nothing." Jake sat down. He lasted 43 seconds. He jumped up and resumed pacing. "This is torture. Actual torture. Don't they know humans need stimulation? We're not built for this." Zixtal watched, fascinated and concerned, as Jake began examining every inch of the room. The human ran his hands along the walls, tapped on the floor, and even tried doing push-ups to keep the blood flowing. After an hour, Jake had somehow managed to create a game using his shoelaces and was attempting to invent new yoga poses. After 2 hours, he was taking apart the ventilation cover with his fingernails while humming every song he could remember. Zixtal's concern grew. This wasn't normal detention behavior. Other species would be deep in meditation by now, but Jake seemed to be growing more agitated by the minute. "Perhaps," Zixtal murmured to themselves, "I should research human psychology before their next detention session." They had no idea how much they would need that research. By hour 3, Jake had completely dismantled the door control panel. Zixtal stared at the security feed in disbelief, as the human used nothing but a hairpin and what appeared to be sheer determination. "This is impossible," Zixtal said to the security officer, a four-armed Braxian. That panel is designed to withstand plasma torches. The security officer shrugged all four shoulders. Humans are known for their creativity under pressure. On screen, Jake was now using pieces from the control panel to create what looked like a primitive communication device. He tapped it against the wall in a rhythmic pattern. Is he trying to send a message? Zixtal asked. It appears to be something called Morse code, the security officer replied. An ancient Earth communication system, he's saying. SOS dying of boredom. Send pizza. Zixtal's crystalline form flickered with confusion. Pizza? Earth food. Quite popular among humans. Jake had now moved on to doing handstands against the wall while reciting what sounded like mathematical equations. His face was red, and he was breathing heavily, but he seemed almost happy to have found something to do. Should we end the detention early? The security officer asked. Zixtal hesitated. Protocol demanded 4 hours, but Jake looked like he might start climbing the walls. Literally. No. He must learn that actions have consequences. 20 minutes later, that decision proved to be a mistake. Jake had somehow accessed the room's environmental controls through the dismantled door panel. The temperature began fluctuating wildly, freezing cold one moment, tropical heat the next. The lights flickered in what appeared to be a deliberate pattern. He's turned the detention room into a disco, the security officer observed with something like admiration. A what? An Earth entertainment venue. Note the rhythmic light patterns. Zixtal watched as Jake began dancing to music only he could. Here, using the temperature changes as some sort of strange rhythm. The human's creativity in the face of isolation was both impressive and alarming. When the 4 hours finally ended, Zixtal personally went to release Jake. The door slid open to reveal the human doing one-handed push-ups while juggling 3 meditation orbs with his feet. Oh hey, Jake said cheerfully, not even breathing hard. Is it time already? I was just getting warmed up. Zixtal surveyed the destruction. The control panel was in pieces. The environmental systems were haywire, and somehow Jake had managed to reprogram the wall display to show a beach scene from Earth. Mr. Miller, Zixtal began, detention is meant to be a time of quiet reflection, not whatever this is. Jake stood up, brushing himself off. Yeah, about that. Humans don't really do the whole quiet reflection thing very well. We're more about action, movement, doing stuff. I am beginning to understand that, Zixtal said dryly. Jake gathered his belongings, then paused at the door. Hey, no hard feelings about the control panel. I can fix it if you want. Probably make it better, actually. I noticed some inefficiencies in the wiring. Zixtal stared at him. You dismantled a security panel because you were bored and now you're offering to improve it. Well, yeah, I had 4 hours to study it, found at least 6 ways to make it more efficient. Jake grinned. That's kind of what humans do. We see something, we figure out how it works, then we try to make it better. Can't help it. As Jake walked away, whistling something called the Star-Spangled Banner, Zixtal made a mental note to research human psychology immediately. If one human could cause this much chaos in 4 hours of isolation, what would happen with multiple humans in detention? The answer to that question would come sooner than expected. The next day, 3 more human students were sent to Zixtal's office for disciplinary action. Emma Roberts for performing unauthorized zero-gravity gymnastics, Chris Martinez for hacking, the cafeteria replicators to produce something called hot sauce, and Amy Lynn for teaching Vorgathian students the Earth game of dodgeball. Zixtal looked at the 3 humans standing before them and felt something they had never experienced. In 300 cycles of teaching, uncertainty. Perhaps, Zixtal thought, I should try a different approach. Emma Roberts bounced on her toes as she stood before Zixtal's desk. The 17-year-old gymnast couldn't seem to stand still, her ponytail swishing as she shifted from foot to foot. Miss Roberts, Zixtal began, you performed unauthorized acrobatics in the zero-gravity chamber during maintenance hours. It was amazing. Emma's eyes lit up. Did you see my triple flip with the spiral twist? I've been working on that move for weeks. Zixtal's crystalline form dimmed slightly. The chamber was closed for recalibration. You could have damaged sensitive equipment. Chris Martinez, standing next to Emma, snorted. Come on. The equipment here is built to withstand meteor impacts. Emma weighs like, what, 100 pounds? 115, Emma corrected. All muscle. Amy Lynn, the third human in the office, was quietly juggling 3 data pads she'd found on a nearby shelf. Sorry about the dodgeball thing, she said without looking up. I didn't know Vorgathians bruise so easily. Zixtal watched Amy's hands move in perfect rhythm. Even while being disciplined, these humans couldn't stop moving. You will all serve detention. 4 hours of isolation for reflection. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Emma's bouncing stopped. Chris's casual lean against the wall turned frigid. Amy dropped all 3 data pads. You're kidding, right? Chris asked. After what Jake did yesterday? Mr. Miller's experience has been noted, Zixtal replied. However, rules must be followed. Amy picked up the data pads, her movements now nervous rather than playful. Look, I'll write a 10-page essay on why dodgeball is dangerous for non-humans. I'll clean the gym. I'll do anything except sit alone in a room for 4 hours. The isolation helps students reflect on their actions, Zixtal insisted. Emma had started pacing. You don't understand. Humans need to move. We need to do things. Jake probably told you. It's like torture for us. But Zixtal remained firm. Rules were rules. 2 hours later, Zixtal deeply regretted that decision. Emma had transformed her isolation room into a gymnasium. She'd stacked furniture to create uneven bars, used the meditation mat for floor exercises, and was currently walking on her hands while singing Earth Show tunes. Chris had somehow accessed the station's mainframe through the room's basic terminal. He wasn't causing damage. He was actually fixing bugs in the system while creating a detailed report on security vulnerabilities. Amy had turned her detention into an art studio. Using food coloring from her lunch and pages from the room's instruction manual, she was creating an elaborate mural on one wall. It depicted the history of human space exploration and was surprisingly beautiful. This is not detention, Zixtal said to the security officer. This is, I don't know what this is. Creative expression, the officer suggested. On the monitors, Emma had started teaching herself to juggle using her shoes. Chris was now coding what looked like a video game. Amy had moved on to sculpting figures out of the room's soundproofing material. They're not even trying to escape, Zixtal observed. They're just occupying themselves. Jake did mention that humans need constant stimulation, the security officer reminded them. By hour 3, things had escalated. Emma had created an obstacle course and was timing herself running through it. Chris had programmed the room's speakers to play something called classical music while he worked. Amy had started a sign language conversation with Emma through their room's windows. Zixtal called an emergency meeting with the faculty. The humans are not responding to traditional discipline, Zixtal reported. They seem physically incapable of sitting still. Dr. Cree, a Martian botanist, nodded. I've observed similar behavior. Yesterday, a human student organized my greenhouse while serving detention, labeled everything in 3 languages. One redesigned my filing system, added Professor Zox from the math department. It's actually much more efficient now. Zixtal's crystalline form pulsed with frustration. But detention is meant to be unpleasant. That's the point. Perhaps for humans, suggested the elderly Arcturian librarian, productivity is more unpleasant than isolation. Zixtal considered this. On the monitors, the 3 humans had somehow started communicating between rooms using a complex system of tapped codes and hand signals. Release them, Zixtal sighed. I need to completely rethink our approach to human discipline. That night, Zixtal stayed late in the library, surrounded by holographic texts on human psychology. The more they read, the more concerned they became. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Zixtal muttered, scanning through a detailed report. They literally chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Another text explained how human brains required constant stimulation. Unlike most species that found peace in stillness, Humans experienced actual distress when forced to remain. Inactive cabin fever, Zixtal read aloud. A condition where isolation and inactivity cause extreme restlessness, irritability, and irrational behavior. They paused. That explains Jake's attempt to build a communicator out of detention room parts. The most alarming discovery was something called solitary confinement syndrome. On Earth, it was considered a severe punishment, sometimes even torture. Humans kept in isolation could experience hallucinations, anxiety, and depression within hours. We've been torturing them, Zixtal realized with growing horror. What we consider peaceful meditation, they experience as psychological punishment. The next morning, Zixtal called a meeting with all human students. 12 teenagers filed into the conference room, their energy filling the space like electricity. Even sitting, they fidgeted, tapped feet, and played with whatever objects they could reach. I owe you all an apology, Zixtal began. I've been applying disciplinary methods that are inappropriate for your species. Jake raised his hand. Does this mean no more isolation detention? Correct. I've learned that humans require different approaches. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room. However, Zixtal continued, there must still be consequences. For rule breaking, I'm open to suggestions. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. Make us run laps, suggested Emma. Or clean something, added Chris. Humans hate cleaning. Community service, Amy chimed in. Back on Earth, we had to pick up trash or help at animal shelters. Jake leaned forward. You could make us write essays. That's boring enough to be punishment, but keeps our brains busy. Zixtal's crystalline form brightened with interest. You would prefer physical labor or mental tasks over peaceful isolation? All 12 humans nodded emphatically. Isolation is the worst, explained a girl named Katie. We start thinking too much, then we get anxious, then we need to do something with our hands or we go crazy. Yesterday in detention, added a boy named Marcus, I started counting ceiling tiles. Then I calculated their total surface area. Then I tried to figure out how many would fit in my hometown. That's not normal. Zixtal absorbed this information. What about meditation? Surely some humans practice it? Sure, Jake replied, but that's voluntary. And even meditation masters don't just sit in empty rooms. They have techniques, breathing exercises, sometimes music or guided instructions. And they choose to do it, Emma emphasized. Being forced to sit still is completely different. Over the next hour, the humans helped Zixtal design a new disciplinary system. Physical tasks like cleaning labs, organizing supply rooms, and maintaining equipment. Mental challenges like writing research papers or creating educational presentations. Community service helping younger students or assisting other departments. The key, Amy explained, is to keep us busy. Humans can handle hard work. We can't handle nothingness. As the meeting ended, Zixtal felt a mix of embarrassment and enlightenment. They had been teaching for 300 cycles but had never encountered a species so fundamentally different in their psychological needs. That afternoon, Zixtal observed their first revised detention. Emma, who had been caught performing zero gravity, cartwheels again, was assigned to help the maintenance crew repair ventilation systems. She worked diligently for 4 hours, chatting happily with the crew while learning about station engineering. This is still punishment? Zixtal asked the maintenance chief. The chief, a 6-limbed Vendorian, nodded. She'd rather be doing gymnastics, but she's content because she's active in learning. Zixtal watched Emma crawl through a maintenance tunnel, tools strapped to her belt, humming as she worked. The human was clearly much happier than she would have been in isolation. Perhaps, Zixtal mused, we've been thinking about discipline all wrong. For humans, the punishment isn't in the task itself, but in being prevented from doing what they truly want. It was a revelation that would change everything. The new detention system seemed to be working well until Danny Thompson arrived at Zixtal's office. The 15-year-old had a reputation for being particularly creative with rules. Mr. Thompson, Zixtal said, reviewing the incident report. You started an unauthorized dance party in the xenobiology lab? Danny grinned, completely unashamed. The fungal specimens respond to vibration. I was conducting an experiment to see if different music genres affected their growth rates by teaching alien students something called the electric slide. Scientific method requires multiple test subjects, Danny replied with mock seriousness. Zixtal considered the new detention options. Danny was known for enjoying physical activity, so manual labor might not be effective. Writing assignments seemed too tame for this particular human. Then Zixtal remembered the old isolation chambers and had an idea. Mr. Thompson, I'm going to try something different. You'll serve your detention in the meditation room, but I'm curious to observe how you handle it. Danny's confident smile faltered. The isolation room? I thought we weren't doing that anymore. Consider it a special case. I want to study human behavior in isolation with your full awareness that it's being monitored. Danny shrugged, his bravado returning. Sure, why not? Could be fun. 20 minutes later, Zixtal was watching in fascination as Danny transformed the meditation room into his personal playground of chaos. First, he used his fingernails to carve complex mathematical equations into the soft walls. These are actually pretty cool, he explained to the camera. They describe the relationship between music frequencies and biological responses. Next, he removed the ventilation grate and fashioned it into a percussion instrument, creating rhythms that echoed through the room. This is called beatboxing, he announced. Very popular on Earth. By the 40-minute mark, Danny had taught himself to walk on his hands, claiming it helped him see things from a different perspective. He then proceeded to recite the entire periodic table while upside down. The security officer joined Zixtal at the monitors. Is he singing chemical elements? It appears so, Zixtal replied. And he's doing it alphabetically by their symbols, not their names. An hour in, Danny had created an elaborate obstacle course using furniture and was timing himself running through it backward. Personal best, he shouted after his 5th attempt. The fascinating thing, Zixtal observed, is that he knows we're watching. He's turning his detention into a performance. The security officer nodded. Humans seemed to find entertainment in the strangest situations. Danny had now moved on to creating shadow puppets on the wall using the room's adjustable lighting. His commentary included a full narrative about a space pirate fighting an army of cosmic squids. Should we end this? The security officer asked. Not yet, Zixtal replied. I want to see how far human creativity can go. By hour 3, Danny had somehow accessed the room's temperature controls and was using the heating and cooling cycles to create air currents. He'd made paper airplanes from pages of the room's instruction manual and was testing their flight patterns. Thermodynamics in action, he called out. This is basically applied physics. When his detention finally ended, Danny bounced out of the room with more energy than when he'd entered. That was actually kind of fun, he told Zixtal. Can I have detention again tomorrow? I want to test if the air current patterns change with different room configurations. Zixtal stared at him. You enjoyed that? Well, yeah. Once I accepted, I was stuck there. It became a challenge. How many ways could I make it interesting? Turns out quite a few. As Danny walked away, humming a chemical element song he'd invented, Zixtal had another revelation. Humans didn't just need activity. They needed challenge. Their minds would create problems to solve if none existed. Perhaps, Zixtal thought, the key to human discipline isn't about punishment at all. It's about channeling their endless creativity in constructive directions. The next day, Zixtal implemented challenge detentions. Each punishment came with a specific problem to solve or skill to master. The results would revolutionize disciplinary methods across the galaxy. Dr. Lisa Grant, the station's only human faculty member, knocked on Zixtal's office door. She carried a thick folder and wore a knowing smile. I hear you've been experimenting with human detention methods, she said, settling into a chair. How's that going? Zixtal's crystalline form flickered with exhaustion. Your species is challenging. Every punishment becomes an opportunity for chaos. Lisa laughed. Welcome to human education. Mind if I offer some advice? Please, Zixtal said eagerly. I've tried isolation, which drove them to creative destruction. I've tried physical tasks, which they enjoy. I've even tried challenge-based detention, which Danny Thompson turned into entertainment. Lisa opened her folder. Here's what you're missing. Humans don't just need activity, they need purpose. On Earth, our detention serves multiple functions. She spread out several documents. Look at these examples. Community service teaches social responsibility. Physical labor like cleaning demonstrates consequences while accomplishing necessary tasks. Educational assignments reinforce learning while keeping minds occupied. Zixtal studied the materials. But how is this punishment if humans enjoy being active? That's the trick, Lisa explained. The punishment isn't the activity itself. It's being forced to do something productive instead of what they'd prefer. A student who loves sports might hate writing essays. A bookworm might dread physical labor. So we match the punishment to what they dislike? Exactly. But it must still be constructive, never pointless. Zixtal considered this. What about physical exercise as punishment? Several students suggested running laps. Lisa nodded. Very common on Earth. Push-ups, running, extra physical training. It serves multiple purposes. It burns excess energy, promotes fitness, and yes, it's unpleasant enough to discourage rule breaking. But isn't that harmful? Not if done properly. Humans evolved with physical activity. We actually need it for mental health. The trick is making it challenging but not dangerous. Zixtal's form brightened with understanding. So when Jake suggested cleaning as punishment, he was being honest, even though humans are always moving and doing things? Absolutely. There's a big difference between chosen activity and assigned tasks. Plus, cleaning is tedious enough to be punishing while still being useful. Over the next hour, Lisa helped Zixtal design a comprehensive human detention system. It included tiered consequences starting with warnings and escalating to more serious punishments. Physical tasks like cleaning labs, organizing storage areas, and maintaining equipment. Educational assignments tailored to each student's weaknesses. Community service helping younger students or other departments. Athletic punishments for students who particularly disliked exercise. Creative challenges for the artistically inclined who would find them restrictive. The key, Lisa emphasized, is understanding each student. What motivates them? What do they avoid? Use that knowledge to create effective consequences. Zixtal implemented the new system immediately. The results were remarkable. Emma, caught doing unauthorized gymnastics again, was assigned to write a detailed technical manual on proper zero-gravity movement techniques. She grumbled through every page but produced an excellent guide. Chris, who hacked the food replicators once more, had to teach basic computer security to younger students. He found teaching far more challenging than hacking. Amy, still promoting dangerous Earth games, was tasked with developing safe alternative activities for mixed-species physical education. The restriction of having to consider everyone's limitations frustrated her perfectly. Even Danny Thompson met his match when assigned to catalog and organize the entire xenobiology specimen collection, a task requiring patience and attention to detail rather than creativity. It's working, Zixtal reported to Lisa a week later. Incidents have decreased, and when they do occur, the punishments are actually effective. Lisa smiled. Humans are complex beings. We need challenge, purpose, and activity. Take away any of those and we create our own, usually in destructive ways. Give us structured tasks that we don't enjoy but that serve a purpose, and you have effective discipline. Zixtal watched through the window as Danny meticulously labeled specimen jars, clearly bored but focused on the task. I believe, Zixtal said, I finally understand human nature. Just remember, Lisa warned, they'll always surprise you. That's what makes teaching humans an adventure. The new detention system transformed the entire school. Word spread quickly among the human students about Zixtal's reformed approach, and something unexpected happened. The humans began to respect the rules more. It's weird, Jake told his friends at lunch. Now that detention isn't torture, I actually think twice before doing something stupid. Emma nodded. Yesterday, I almost tried a quintuple flip in the gym, but then I remembered I'd have to write another technical manual. Totally not worth it. Zixtal observed these changes with growing satisfaction. The detention room, once a source of dread and destruction, had become a productive space. Human students could be found there at any hour, some serving punishment, others voluntarily completing assignments. One afternoon, Zixtal found Chris Martinez in detention, teaching a group of Vendorian students basic coding. This wasn't his punishment. He was serving detention by tutoring others in computer science. "Mr. Martinez," Zixtal said, "I see you're making productive use of your time." Chris grinned. "Way better than trying to hack things. Plus, these guys are actually pretty good at programming once you explain it right." The success of the program caught the attention of other faculty members. Soon, teachers from various departments were consulting with Zixtal about handling their human students. "They keep taking apart my equipment," complained Professor Thrix from the engineering department. "Give them broken equipment to fix," Zixtal suggested. "Make it their detention assignment." The next week, Professor Thrix reported that not only had the human students repaired all the broken equipment, but they'd also improved several designs and created an inventory system. The art department had similar issues. "They won't stop drawing on the walls," the instructor lamented. "Assign them to create educational murals," Zixtal advised. "Give them specific themes and locations. Channel their creativity." Soon, the station's bare corridors were decorated with beautiful murals explaining various scientific concepts, created by human students serving detention. The biggest change came in the physical education department. The Krellian instructor had been terrified of human students after the dodgeball incident. "They're too aggressive," he worried. "Too competitive." Zixtal had an idea. "What if students who break rules in your class have to design and teach safer versions of their games? Make them responsible for everyone's safety." The result was a new curriculum of modified Earth sports, adapted for multi-species participation. Amy Lynn's universal dodgeball became particularly popular, with soft foam balls and special rules for different species' abilities. 3 months after implementing the new system, Zixtal compiled a report for the Galactic Educational Exchange program. The statistics were impressive: disciplinary incidents down by 60%, academic performance up by 40%, and interspecies cooperation at an all-time high. But the most meaningful feedback came from the students themselves. "I used to hate getting in trouble," Danny Thompson admitted during a student feedback session. "Now I still don't like it, but at least I'm doing something useful. Last week, I had to reorganize the chemistry lab. Found 3 expired compounds and prevented a potential accident." Emma raised her hand. "The best part is that we're learning even when we're being punished. I had to write that technical manual about zero-G movement, and now I understand the physics way better," Jake added. "And we're helping others too. When I served detention by tutoring younger students in math, I realized I actually like teaching." Zixtal's crystalline form glowed with pride. The transformation went beyond just discipline. It had changed the entire culture of the school. "You've accomplished something remarkable," the station director told Zixtal during a review meeting. "You've turned human chaos into productivity." "I simply learned to work with human nature instead of against it," Zixtal replied. "They need purpose, challenge, and activity. Give them those, and they thrive." The director nodded. "The Galactic Educational Exchange Program wants to implement your methods across all facilities with human students. Are you willing to train other educators?" Zixtal looked out the window at a group of human students painting an educational mural while serving detention, their laughter echoing through the corridor. "Of course," Zixtal said. "It's time the galaxy learned how to properly educate Deathworlders." 6 months later, Zixtal stood before the Galactic Educational Conference, their crystalline form shimmering under the auditorium lights. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered to hear about the revolutionary detention system. "Fellow educators," Zixtal began, "I once believed humans were simply rebellious. I now understand they are fundamentally different from most species we teach." The holographic display showed footage of Jake Miller's first detention, his frantic pacing, and eventual dismantling of the control panel. The audience murmured in shock. "This is not defiance," Zixtal explained. This is survival instinct. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a death world. Their bodies and minds require constant activity. The presentation continued with clips of Emma's gymnastics detention, Chris's coding sessions, and Danny's creative chaos. Each example demonstrated how human students transformed punishment into productivity when given the right framework. The key insight, Zixtal continued, is that humans must be productive. They cannot simply exist. They must do, create, solve, or build. Traditional detention removes all purpose from their existence, triggering a crisis response. A Vortian educator raised a tentacle. But how do you maintain discipline if punishment becomes productive? Zixtal's form brightened. The punishment isn't the activity, it's the restriction of choice. A student who loves physical activity dreads writing essays. A creative student suffers when forced to do repetitive tasks. We match consequences to what each student finds challenging, while ensuring the work serves a purpose. The presentation showcased the transformed school. Murals painted by detained students. Repaired equipment. Tutoring programs. Safety protocols written by rule breakers. Gardens maintained by those who'd rather be playing sports. The results speak for themselves, Zixtal said. Incidents decreased. Academic performance improved, and most importantly, we stopped torturing our human students with isolation. After the presentation, educators crowded around Zixtal with questions. Many shared their own struggles with human students. I had one dismantle my entire classroom because he was bored during a lecture, said a Martian professor. Mine started teaching herself to juggle during meditation period, added an Andromedan teacher. They're impossible to keep still, complained a Centaurian instructor. Zixtal listened patiently. That's exactly the point. Stop trying to keep them still. Give them purpose instead. In the months that followed, Zixtal's method spread across the galaxy. Schools implemented activity-based detention, challenge assignments, and purposeful consequences. The changes weren't just for humans. Many high-energy species benefited from the new approach. Jake Miller, now a senior, visited Zixtal's office one day. I wanted to thank you, he said. Not just for making detention bearable, but for understanding. You taught me as much as I taught you, Zixtal replied. That first detention, you showed me that human nature cannot be suppressed, only channeled. Jake grinned. Remember when I took apart that control panel? I actually use those skills now in my engineering classes. Funny how things work out. Emma stopped by later that week. I'm applying to the Galactic Sports Academy, she announced. They were impressed by the technical manual I wrote during detention. Who knew punishment could help my college applications? Even Danny Thompson had grown from his experiences. I'm developing educational games for multi-species classrooms, he told Zixtal. Turns out all that creative chaos was good practice for game design. On Zixtal's desk sat a small plaque, a gift from the human students. It read, "Never leave a human alone with their thoughts. The results are unpredictable, often explosive, and occasionally brilliant." Below that, someone had added, "Thank you for understanding us." As Zixtal prepared for another day of teaching, they reflected on their journey. They had started trying to force humans into standard molds, only to discover that human potential flourished when properly directed. The morning bell rang, and students of all species filed into classrooms. Somewhere in the station, a human student was probably planning some minor mischief. But now Zixtal smiled at the thought. After all, that restless energy, that constant need to do and create and explore, that was what made humans special. The galaxy hadn't just learned to handle humans, it had learned to appreciate them. And sometimes, just sometimes, their chaos led to brilliance.